I don't have anything. 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 I just don't have anything. I don't have anything. You don't have anything. You just don't have anything. Don't have anything. So I don't have anything.
And if you are an individual, a foreign national who illegally enters the United States of America, you are by definition a criminal. And so therefore you are subject to deportation.
And we finally, after 4 years of chaos and mayhem and apologizing for America, have a president again in the Oval Office who is standing up for America. And this is what it looks like when you have a leader of our great nation who uses the leverage of the United States, who understands that since our nation's founding, we have been viewed as that shining light on the hill. We have been viewed, rightfully so, as the best, proudest country in the world.
Step into the new era of politics where common sense has driven the nation forward. For the past 4 years, the press secretary was little more than a DEI appointment. Yet within weeks, the new Trump press secretary, Karoline Leavitt, has dismantled Karine Jean-Pierre during press exchanges. In this video, we've compiled every moment Leavitt outshined Jean-Pierre during live White House briefings, starting with their inaugural clash. Observe how critics sensationalize celebrating the first black woman, first immigrant, and first openly gay woman as White House press secretary. Leavitt's sharp, unflinching clarity exposes the stark contrast between substance and symbolism.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello. I know that was a long 2 minutes. I apologize. Okay, let's get started. So before we start the briefing, I want to take a moment to recognize the lives lost and forever changed in Buffalo. Former Buffalo Police Lieutenant Aaron Salter, 55, is a hero, a security guard who engaged a suspect to save lives and was killed in the process. Ruth Whitfield, 86, was mother of Buffalo's retired fire commissioner, Garnell W. Whitfield. Ruth was the rock of the family.
Apologies, but this is pure nonsense. A blatant example of a real DEI hire. One question, does she genuinely believe these remarks would bolster her image during her press secretary debut? If so, she should have opened with clarity, not divisive rhetoric. A strong start, acknowledge the role's gravity, prioritize transparency, and reject.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are we? Good to see all of you. It's an honor to be here with all of you. A lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new faces. And President Trump is back, and the golden age of America has most definitely begun. The Senate has already confirmed 5 of President Trump's exceptional cabinet nominees: Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. It is imperative that the Senate continues to confirm the remainder of the president's well-qualified nominees as quickly as possible. As you have seen during the past week, President Trump is hard at work fulfilling the promises that he made to the American people on the campaign trail. Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S.
That's exactly what we need. Common sense. If you really pay attention, you'll notice a stark difference in how she confidently addresses what we all want to hear. To me, she's not just speaking, she's making promises she genuinely believes in.
Who is delivering on the promises he made to the American people and who speaks the truth. So I'm so humbled by the outpouring of support I've heard from people across the country saying, you know, we're doing such a great job at the White House. Well, it's easy to do a good job when you are acting on common sense and you're speaking the truth. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing every single day.
This is the outcome when you work with someone grounded in common sense. A stark contrast to what we've witnessed with Karine Jean-Pierre. Observe Jean-Pierre's strained attempts to rationalize the glaring communication void between the press and the former president.
The White House released a 6-page summary back in February. I don't think that was a full accounting necessarily. And Dr. O'Connor in that memo described the president as, quote, a healthy, active, robust 81-year-old male who remains fit to successfully execute the duties of the presidency. I think that is clearly not what the majority of Americans are seeing. And we have a new poll from CBS News that says 72% of registered voters say the president does not have the mental and cognitive health to to serve as president. So are you saying that the majority of Americans are misguided and that they just need to trust Dr. O'Connor and take him at his word?
So a couple of things, and I want to say the president is feeling better, and you saw him last night, you saw him today, but he does indeed still have a cold. Look, I want to be very sensitive here, and I think it is important to be sensitive here. We understand how the American people are feeling. We get it. We do. And
you can't say anything meaningful because you fundamentally misunderstand the issue. And as we've seen, their arguments always default to emotion, gender, and race. This exchange proves it. Rather than addressing the question, she deflected with an emotionally charged non-answer. Now watch as a reporter demands she task Biden with answering inquiries. A clear indictment of her glaring lack of substantive knowledge.
I appreciate the request. Thank you for the request. The president, as you know, again, I appreciate the question and I get it. And the president understands. You guys want to ask him questions and have the opportunity for him to answer your questions. I do want to say this is a president that has done more in the first 2.5 years, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to really giving the American people a little bit of breathing room than any other president.
Did you catch how she instantly shifted the conversation? Honestly, she reminded me of Kamala Harris. Not only did she dodge the question entirely, but she didn't even attempt to redirect it. She skipped straight to talking about the economy. And once again, when pressed, her visible arrogance flared. Just look at her face.
Secondly, the president invited his son Hunter to the state dinner last night. I'm wondering if you could take us into the thinking and the decision-making of why the president decided to.
I'm just not going to get into family discussion, personal family discussion. As you know, Hunter is his son. I'm just not going to get into it.
If Hunter Biden wasn't the president's son, would he have invited someone who had just reached a plea agreement with federal prosecutors?
Well, a couple of things. Again, that's his son. He's a family member. It is not uncommon for family members to attend events at the White House. You could look at past presidents. I'm sure you have. So that is not uncommon. As it relates to anything related to Hunter, I'm just not going to respond to it from here.
This girl isn't anywhere near qualified if there's ever been a standard. My God, was there no qualification necessary to be press secretary?
But to answer the question, I mean, kind of not an unreasonable question to ask whether the President of the United States was involved, as this message seems to suggest, in some sort of coercive conversation for business dealing by his son. Is that something, if he wasn't, then maybe you should tell us.
So here's the thing, and I appreciate the question. I believe my colleague at the White House Counsel has answered this question already, has dealt with this, has made it very clear. I just don't have anything to share outside of what my colleagues have shared, and so I would refer you to him and the DOJ. Just not going to comment from here.
But this isn't the first time she's dodged a question. Once again, she deflected after a Fox News reporter posed a straightforward query. The laughable part, she was wholly unprepared to answer, yet still lied blatantly to the public.
Thanks, Karine. So, what do you call it here at the White House when 10,000 people illegally cross the border in a single day?
So what do you call it, Peter, when GOP puts forth a wait, no, you can't.
Karine?
I'm answering. Okay, we're gonna move
You're
on.
answering a question with a question? Okay.
No. We're moving on.
Karine,
Moving.
please.
In the back.
Now, you said you were stopping the flow at the border.
No.
10,000
I tried to
migrants-
answer, Peter. I
okay.
tried to answer the question. You stopped me. Let's go.
Let's be honest, did you actually see her try to answer the question, or did I miss something? Just listen to what Greg reveals about the cover-ups she's orchestrated for Joe Biden.
Jean-Pierre is rejecting claims that the White House staff treats Joe Biden like a baby. In fact, she says Joe is reading at a third grade level and can walk several steps without falling down. When asked about a stain on her shirt, she said Joe spit up on her while burping him.
And did you know she's admitted that most of the time, she has no clue what she's talking about?
Sometimes I get it wrong. At least I admit that. And sometimes I don't have the information. And I will always admit that. But I do take offense to what was just happening at the beginning of this briefing. It's not okay.
Poor Karine Jean-Pierre was nearly in tears. You won't believe how often she muttered, "I don't know." But before we play the video, observe how Karoline starkly contrasted Jean-Pierre. And remember, the media will never highlight this.
And we start with the criminals. There are many, many criminals. NBC News has learned that ICE arrested 1,179 undocumented immigrants on Sunday, but nearly half of them, 566 of the migrants, appear to have no prior criminal record besides entering the country illegally. Is the president still focused exclusively, which is a civil crime, it's not criminal?
It's a federal crime.
So I'm asking though, he said he was going to focus on those violent offenders first. So is violent offenders no longer the predicate for these people to be deported?
Watch as Karoline captivates the audience with her commanding response. It's undeniably clear she's the ideal candidate for this role, leaving many questioning how Jean-Pierre ever secured the position last term.
The president has said countless times on the campaign trail, I've been with him at the rallies, I know you've been there covering them too, Peter, that he is focused on launching the largest mass deportation operation in American history of illegal criminals. And if you are an individual, a foreign national, who illegally enters the United States of America, you are, by definition, a criminal. And so therefore you are subject to deportation.
And that's how you answer a question flawlessly, with a truthful punch. These are the same media outlets that stayed silent for 4 years, only to erupt when Trump entered the White House. But Karoline Leavitt didn't tolerate biased CNN reporters. She dismantled them with relentless facts.
Several prosecutors, I believe 12, fired from the Justice Department, who worked on the investigations into the president. As you know, they are career prosecutors, therefore they are afforded civil service protections. How is the administration deciding which laws to follow and which ones to ignore?
So it is the belief of this White House and the White House counsel's office that the president was within his executive authority to do that. He is the executive of the executive branch, and therefore he has the power to fire anyone within the executive branch that he wishes to. There's also a case that went before the Supreme Court in 2020, Scala Law LLC versus the Customs, Bureau of Protection. I would advise you to look at that case, and that's the legality that this White House was resting on.
I'd be thrilled if any leftist or DEI appointee could articulate ideas as fluently as this. Her excellence is undeniable. Mastering this caliber of skill is rare. Even critics dismissing her as a 10 hired for looks can't match her. Competence. For evidence, watch her dismantle the former secretary and the entire left-wing media apparatus for their blatant failure to uphold truth. Leavitt doesn't just outperform, she exposes systemic dishonesty with precision.
Terrorists and cartels and murderers and rapists and American victims that I'm shocked Democrats don't seem to care a lot about. I did fail to mention we had hostages released out of Venezuela. I don't think most Americans, Karoline, even knew about that.
No, they didn't. It happened on Friday afternoon. The legacy media went home, I guess, or they didn't want to report on more good news coming from the Trump administration. But Rick Grenell went to Venezuela with 2 very clear directives from the President of the United States. Land repatriation flights of illegal Tren de Aragua gang members who have infiltrated our country under the Biden administration. Get them back to Venezuela. Done.
Karoline's delivery is flawless, showcasing her deep passion for her work. She confidently provides well-informed answers to every question, making it all the more puzzling how Jean-Pierre seemed unaware of what was happening.
And number 2, return the 6 U.S. hostages who have been held captive in Venezuela and the previous administration never even talked about. Rick Grenell, on the behalf of President Trump, using President Trump's negotiating leverage, was able to get that done. And then in that same day, we took out ISIS fighters in Somalia. Again, a story that the mainstream media doesn't want to cover. And then Secretary of State Rubio, who's doing a phenomenal job on behalf of President Trump, secured concessions from Panama. They are no longer going to charge U.S. naval ships who go through the canal. And they also have said they are no longer going to be a part of the CCP-led Belt and Road Initiative. So these small wins are racking up for the United States, and the entire world knows that America is back.
Despite her long tenure in the White House.
Your thoughts in the comments.
Don't forget to subscribe. If you truly believe she's the best, drop your thoughts in the comments. And to see the stark contrast, just watch how the previous press secretary struggled.